How to fix Resident Evil Village black screen and PC. Restart with HDR on OLED monitors. Welcome back to Tenabalta. Today, we delve into a critical and frustrating issue plaguing many PC gamers. The dreaded black screen and subsequent system restart when playing Resident Evil Village with HDR enabled on OLED monitors. This isn't just a minor glitch. It often points to complex interactions between your display technology, graphics hardware, and software configurations, leading to a complete system instability event. Our deep dive guide aims to meticulously troubleshoot and resolve this specific challenge, ensuring your high-fidelity OLED experience with HDR in Resident Evil Village is seamless and stable. We understand the allure of HDR on OLED displays, offering unparalleled contrast and vibrant colors that elevate the horror experience in Resident Evil Village. However, when these advanced display modes trigger system crashes, often characterized by a display driver stopped responding and has recovered, or a more severe system shutdown with a stop code like VIDEOTDRERROR before a restart, it signifies a critical fault in the rendering pipeline or power delivery. This guide provides an exhaustive list of technical solutions, moving beyond simple toggles to address root causes from driver integrity to power management and display firmware. Deep dive solutions for Resident Evil Village HDR stability. Temporarily disable in-game HDR. The most immediate diagnostic step is to disable high dynamic range within Resident Evil Village's graphics settings. This directly addresses the forum's discovered solution, helping to isolate if the problem originates from the game's HDR implementation or a deeper system conflict. If stability is restored, it strongly indicates an HDR-specific interaction issue that subsequent steps will help to mitigate while aiming for a full HDR experience. Toggle Windows HDR settings. Beyond in-game settings, navigate to Windows Display Settings and experiment with disabling or re-enabling HDR. System Display HDR. Sometimes, a discrepancy between the operating system's HDR state and the game's can lead to conflicts, especially if Windows HDR is active while the game tries to initiate its own. Ensuring these settings are harmonized or completely turned off can prevent crashes. Perform a clean GPU driver installation. Outdated or corrupted graphics drivers are a frequent culprit for display-related crashes, particularly with cutting-edge features like HDR. Utilize Display Driver Uninstaller. In safe mode to completely remove existing NVIDIA, AMD, or Intel drivers. Then install the latest WHQL-certified drivers directly from your GPU manufacturer's website. A clean installation ensures no remnants from previous driver versions interfere with HDR functionality. Consider rolling back GPU drivers. While the latest drivers are usually recommended, newer versions can occasionally introduce regressions or specific incompatibilities with certain game and hardware combinations, especially for less common OLED panel integrations. If crashes began after a recent driver update, attempt to roll back to a previously stable driver version known to work well with Resident Evil Village and your OLED monitor. This diagnostic step helps pinpoint if the issue is version-specific. Update OLED monitor firmware. Monitor firmware updates often contain crucial bug fixes, performance enhancements, and improved compatibility for HDR standards and various GPU architectures. Check your Asus XG27 Acti monitor's support page for any available firmware updates, and follow the manufacturer's instructions meticulously for installation. An outdated monitor firmware could be the bottleneck for stable HDR communication. Verify DisplayPort or HDMI cable quality and standard. High-bandwidth HDR signals, especially at high refresh rates, demand premium display cables that meet the appropriate DisplayPort e.g., DP1, 4 or higher, or HDMI e.g., HDMI 2.0b HDMI 2.1 standards. A low-quality, damaged, or insufficiently rated cable can lead to signal dropouts, black screens, or system instability under heavy load. Ensure you are using a certified cable capable of handling the required bandwidth for 4K HDR at your desired refresh rate. Monitor GPU and CPU temperatures. System crashes, particularly those leading to restarts, can often be triggered by excessive component temperatures. Use monitoring software like HW Monitor or MSI Afterburner to observe your GPU and CPU temperatures during gameplay, especially just before a crash. Overheating components can cause throttling, instability, and forced shutdowns to prevent hardware damage, and HDR content can significantly increase GPU load. Assess power supply unit, PSU capacity and stability. Running a demanding game like Resident Evil Village with HDR on an OLED monitor, coupled with a powerful GPU, can introduce significant transient power spikes. An insufficient or aging power supply unit, PSU, might struggle to deliver stable power during these peaks, leading to system crashes and restarts. Ensure your PSU has adequate wattage for your entire system and is not experiencing degradation or failing to deliver clean power. Ensure Windows is fully updated. Operating system updates frequently include critical fixes for system stability, display stack improvements, and compatibility enhancements that can indirectly resolve HDR-related issues. Navigate to Windows Update settings and ensure your system is running the latest version of Windows 10 or 11, including all optional and cumulative updates. Outdated OS components can interfere with proper hardware-software communication. Verify Resident Evil Village game files. Corrupted game files can lead to unpredictable behavior, including crashes during specific in-game events, as reported in the forum data. Utilize your game launcher, Steam, Epic Games, etc., to verify the integrity of Resident Evil Village's game files. This process scans for and replaces any damaged or missing files, ensuring the game's core assets are intact and functioning correctly. Perform a clean reinstallation of the game. If verifying game files does not resolve the issue, a complete reinstallation of Resident Evil Village might be necessary. This ensures that any deep-seated corruptions, registry entries, or configuration files are completely purged and reinstalled from scratch. Remember to back up any save files before proceeding with a full uninstall. Lower demanding graphics settings. Even if your system meets the recommended specifications, certain graphics settings can place an extreme load on your GPU and RAM, potentially exacerbating HDR-related instability. Experiment with lowering settings like volumetric lighting quality, screen space reflections, ambient occlusion, and texture quality. Reducing this load can sometimes provide enough headroom for HDR to function stably, even if not at peak settings. Adjust display refresh rate. High refresh rates combined with HDR can push display pipelines to their absolute limits. Try reducing your OLED monitor's refresh rate to a slightly lower, but still smooth, setting e.g. from 144 Hz to 120 Hz or 60 Hz. This can alleviate bandwidth constraints and stress on the GPU and display cable, potentially resolving the black screen and restart issue. Disable all system overclocks. Aggressive overclocks on your CPU, GPU, or RAM can introduce instability that manifests as crashes under heavy load, particularly when complex rendering like HDR is involved. Revert all system components to their stock clock speeds and voltage settings, especially for the GPU, and test Resident Evil Village again. If stability returns, gradually reintroduce overclocks while monitoring for issues. Identify and disable background applications/overlays. Conflicting software, such as GPU monitoring tools, game overlays, Discord, GeForce Experience, MSI Afterburner, etc., or aggressive antivirus programs can sometimes interfere with game processes and display output, especially when HDR is active. Perform a clean boot to minimize background processes or systematically disable non-essential applications, and overlays to identify any potential conflicts. Check Windows event logs for critical errors. The Windows Event Viewer provides a detailed record of system events, including critical errors that precede a black screen or system restart. Open Event Viewer, run Event for MSC, navigate to Windows Log System, and look for critical errors, red exclamation marks, around the timestamps of your crashes. These logs often provide specific error codes or messages, such as kernel power or display, which are invaluable for diagnosis. Reset Windows HDR display calibration. If you've performed any custom HDR calibration, e.g., using Windows HDR calibration tool or monitor-specific software, that resulted in a 1100 nit target, try resetting it to default. Incorrect or overly aggressive calibration profiles can sometimes push the display pipeline beyond its stable operating parameters, leading to crashes. Resetting to a factory default or standard Windows profile can help rule out calibration as a cause. Reinstall or update DirectX and Visual C++ runtimes. Resident Evil Village, like many modern games, relies heavily on up-to-date DirectX and Visual C++ redistributable packages. Corrupted or outdated versions of these essential runtime libraries can lead to various in-game issues, including display-related crashes. Download and reinstall the latest versions directly from Microsoft's website to ensure these foundational components are functional. By systematically working through these deep-dive troubleshooting steps, you can identify and resolve the underlying causes of the Resident Evil Village black screen and PC restart issue when using HDR on your OLED monitor. We understand the commitment to achieving the optimal visual experience, and these solutions are designed to help you regain full stability. Don't forget to follow Tenabalta for more expert technical guides and troubleshooting insights.